just a heads up. But thanks everyone for coming. If you haven't taken the poll, please take the poll. We're talking about 5 kind of really different fellowships today, and so if I know which ones you're most interested in, we can spend the most time talking about those. But I hope that you're interested in hearing about all of them, even if they're not necessarily relevant to you. So thanks for joining us. Let me figure out how to switch my slide. There we go. So this is a session from National Fellowships and Scholar Programs on these 5 graduate programs. My name is Jennifer Bess. I'm Director of National Fellowships in our office. And I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the resources that our office has for people who are applying, particularly to these graduate programs. One of the things that's a little special about grad programs in general when you're looking at fellowships is that oftentimes you can apply for them as early as your senior year, right? Going to go straight into them after graduation, but you also can apply as an alum. And so I would just flag for you that we are happy to work with students who are alumni applying for these awards. And so just so you know, it's not restricted only to USC students. There are 5 of us in the office who do National Fellowship advising. So Ethan is on the call, it's me, Jen, Novella, Paige, and Taylor. So please be sure to talk with at least one of us if you're interested in any of these fellowships. Coming to this meeting, one of the things that we'll do in terms of follow-up is we'll make sure that you have access to our Blackboard organization if you don't already. That's where we have a lot of general hints and tips. And then for some of these awards, we've had previous winners, and we may have their applications available for you should you decide to apply. But for a lot of these, we may not have those resources. But we're happy to talk with you about what a good one would look like. So just wanted to start off with that, and then a jump into what National Fellowships really are in general. So we're talking about merit-based awards. These are awards that are presented to you, not through the university. And they are portable financial awards given to students all across the U.S., the nationally competitive part, and in many of the cases that we're talking about today, internationally. So a kind of giant pool of applicants. Session we're talking about graduate study pretty much across all disciplines, just depending upon what your interests are. So just a little quick refresher on what National Fellowships are. So these 5 that we're going to talk about today, we have the Schwarzman Scholarship and the Yenching Academy. Both of those are for graduate or master's degrees in China. We have the Soros Fellowship for New Americans, and then we have the Knight-Hennessy program at Stanford, and then the Erasmus Mundus joint master's degree programs. So I'm seeing in our poll that we actually have kind of a range of interests. So I am going to go through all of them because also I only asked you to pick one, and you might be interested in more than one, and that's fine too. So, but please feel free to stop me anytime to ask questions because they are really different programs, and so I don't want to assume that you all know or are interested in each one, but I want to make sure I answer questions all along the way. So just raise your hand or take your mic off. Please feel free to interrupt me. So let's dive in. I got super excited making these slides. Wow, and that looks terrible. I apologize. When I made that slide, the background was opaque. I wonder if I can fix that. Anyway, I was excited because it's a picture I actually took at Schwarzman in Beijing. So the Schwarzman Scholarship, I will make sure that you guys get a better view of this PowerPoint. So this is for a 1-year master's degree at Tsinghua University in Beijing. This is founded by Steve Schwarzman, and it really is a focus on leadership, I would say. Global affairs, China. I mean, Steve Schwarzman is a big businessman who believes that the future certainly involves China, if not revolves around China. And so he wanted to create a program that would bring together students from all across the world to really get a grounding in what the current state of things is in China, really network with that cohort of students, and in the process earn a master's degree. So you get a master's degree in global affairs. There's some required coursework that everyone takes, and then there are some elective options that you can take in various directions depending upon what you're most interested in studying in China. Aside from the regular sort of coursework, master's work that you'd be doing, they also have what they call a deep dive course, which involves usually travel to a variety of places in mainland China to kind of see different cultural experiences and different businesses and things like that. Mandarin language courses are required. You do not have to speak any Mandarin to apply to this program. It's taught entirely in English, but they do want you to learn some, certainly while you're there, so that you can navigate where you're living. And then they also welcome people who have a more extensive background in Chinese. It's a really interesting program because it's not, your interest in China can either be longstanding or very recent. You just have to have a reason for it, a compelling one that will demonstrate why this is important for you going forward in the future. Again, all the classwork is in English. It's all taught within Schwarzman College. So even though you're at Tsinghua, you're pretty much just taking classes within the Schwarzman. And the class size, I can't remember the class size actually. I think it's like 150 students, but it's basically 40% of the scholars are from the US, 20% are from China, and 40% are from the rest of the world. So it is a really international student body that they're hosting. The application will open on April 14th, and the deadline is September 21st. This is the only one we'll talk about today that already has a deadline set, so that's nice. So happy to talk with anybody who's interested in this. The application process and that it is really, really focused on leadership. I think that's one of the key things. They really want you to talk about a specific example of your leadership, how that's developed. If you can relate it to China, great, but you don't have to. They just want to see that you are poised to be a strong leader in that area. They usually do in-person interviews at a few spots around the world. I'm not sure that they're going to be doing that with COVID right now. I think they went totally virtual last year. I think the program actually was virtual last year. They had to do some finagling, but it is still on and accepting applications for the next cycle. And I'm happy to chat with anybody about that. Max, I see that that was the one that you were most interested in. So if you've got any questions, let me know. It's a really kind of, it's a very prestigious, very fancy, solid program. It's only been around, I think, now for maybe 4 or 5 years. So, but it's beautiful because it's totally dominating with technologies. Yeah. Riley, who was asking a question? No one? I heard somebody. No? Okay. Well, moving on. A second fellowship that we will chat about is the Yenching Academy. This is having the same problem. All my slides are going to have this problem. I was so excited, and I apologize. I also took this photo at Yenching Academy. So Yenching is at Peking University, also in Beijing. And so this is a program, it's kind of in contrast to Schwarzman, right? I wanted to do both of these programs to talk with you because it really just depends on what your interest and focus is in terms of having an interest in China. So the Yenching Academy, you earn a master's degree in China Studies, and this is pretty much humanities or social sciences, whichever area and whatever particular field within those. You get to really shape that program. It does have some core coursework that's shared amongst everyone, but you have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you take. Unlike Tsinghua, where you're only taking classes within Schwarzman, at Yenching, you are free to take coursework in departments across Peking University. So these are like the top 2 universities in China, by the way. And so there's more flexibility and there's more interaction with non-Yenching students than there might be if you were a Schwarzman scholar. It is taught in English. When you're taking classes in other departments, you have the option to take them in English or Chinese, depending on your level and what you're interested in. And 80% of the scholars are international students. So it's 20% Chinese, 80% international. I think it's about like 25 to 30% American students is what the breakdown is. You do study Mandarin while you're there. They do field trips. You do write a master's thesis. This is a more academically focused program, I would say, than Schwarzman. If you are really interested in the interactions and discussions between East and West, really understanding Chinese culture and society, the impact of Chinese civilization on the world and the current state of things, this is a program that really lets you kind of dig deep into that and wrap your arms around it. It is a 2-year program. The way it functions is you apply, and they would award you a 1-year fellowship for the first year. And then assuming that you have good academic standing after that and intend to stay in Beijing for that second year, you can apply for the second year of the fellowship. You do not have to stay in Beijing for that second year. The second year is really finishing your thesis and defending it. So there's some flexibility there in terms of your location. But they have a lovely courtyard, a lovely building, a lovely school and program that they have. So if you're interested in China, both of those are good things to investigate. I know that we've had Schwarzman applicants, we've had Schwarzman finalists. I'm not aware of anyone who's applied to Yenching, but I just think we haven't quite found the right person yet. So maybe one of you. But it's a really good program and offers some great perks. They don't have an application open yet or a deadline yet, but for conversation's sake, their deadline last year was in early December, so it should probably be about the same in coming years. Any questions about Yenching? No? Okay. I'm going to ask if any of you are eligible for Soros. Soros is one that we would love to encourage more students to apply for. It's really hard for us to know which students are eligible because you have to be a new American, is defined as either being an immigrant to the U.S. yourself or being the child of immigrants. So anybody eligible? I should just ask a yes or no question. Okay, you should. If you are, then we're going to go more deeply into it. So the Soros Fellowship for New Americans provides $90,000 over 2 years for graduate school. So I think it's like it's a $25,000 living stipend and half tuition, I think is how they define it. But it's $90,000. This is a really flexible program. It's really any graduate degree. If you look at the list of winners in a given year, there are a lot of med school, law school, even business school folks. So it's one that you can use for professional school, which is not always the case with some fellowships. So that's nice. They give out about 30 awards every year, so it is really competitive. But I do believe I know we've had applicants before. I'm pretty sure we've had some finalists. We've not had a Soros Scholar. So again, it could be you. But they really do have this emphasis on the immigrant experience, on creativity, on having a commitment to the Constitution and Bill of Rights, and how you kind of demonstrate that in your daily life and your interests and direction. And again, this is one that the application is not open right now, but the deadline is usually at the end of October. It's an interesting application. I mean, I think that they do really want to understand. They're trying to really raise the stories of immigrants in the U.S. and provide support for them to continue to be such important members of society. So it's a good one. I will say, because they only give 30 a year, if you look at the list of students or applicants who are winning, they're kind of the usual suspects in terms of schools. It's hard to break into Soros, but I really think it's worth it if this is something that fits your background and your interest. As we say with all fellowship processes, right? The process itself is useful in terms of talking through your experiences and your goals and explaining who you are to people. So it's a good one. I don't have a lot more detail than that, but does anyone have questions or really interested in the Soros? I'm happy to answer them or dig into them more. I know this is the fastest workshop ever also. Anybody? Now the two that have the most interest, it looks like. I'm so sorry about the slide. I wonder if I can change it like in the moment. I think the answer is no. So the Knight-Hennessy Scholars. This is the building that they have for you. So we can focus on that. The architecture is very interesting and it seems very sort of modern at California. The Knight-Hennessy Scholars are a new program, again, only a few years old at Stanford. So this is a really specific fellowship. It is only for graduate school at Stanford. Okay. So first criteria of applying to Knight-Hennessy is, do you want to go to grad school at Stanford? For most of us, I think the answer would be yes. So this requires an application both to Knight-Hennessy as a scholarship and to the graduate program at Stanford. Okay, they happen kind of simultaneously. I believe the Knight-Hennessy deadline is usually about mid-October. And one of the things about Knight-Hennessy is that they do talk to the programs. So there is a conversation about your application. not to the extent that Knight-Hennessy can go and say, hey, I really, really want this person to come to Stanford, and the graduate program can say, we're not that impressed, and Knight-Hennessy overrides it. It's not that kind of thing. But they do chat about who the best fit might be. And I do think Knight-Hennessy is able to sort of like highlight like something special about a person that maybe the admissions for the graduate program didn't see in the way that the application that they saw looked. So, but it is important. So you can't get Knight-Hennessy without being accepted to Stanford. It will fund any graduate degree. So whatever degree, whether it's a law degree or their med school, business school, any of their joint degrees. So there's a lot of flexibility in how this is used, and it's fully funded and like then some. So it's pretty awesome actually. They do really emphasize interdisciplinary interests and problem solving and leadership and sort of creativity and approaching problems from new and really interesting ways to facilitate that, right? Because the scholars themselves, right, you're all studying different things. But what Knight-Hennessy does is they bring you together for certain events and workshops and leadership series to learn about and interact with each other in ways that can kind of spark that interdisciplinary creativity. So any interdisciplinary interest that you have that you can highlight in your application as a reason for wanting to go to Stanford, but also to be part of the Knight-Hennessy group is important to your application. Their programming includes what they call the King Global Leadership Program. So they do various community experiences, they do workshops, they have, you do one domestic and one global study trip as a cohort. They really focus, I think we had a representative a couple of years ago come to campus and he was talking about one of the workshops and classes they do in the session is on storytelling, because a lot of what you need to be able to do is to tell people your story to get them interested in investing with you or working with you or things like that. So it's really kind of a totally hands-on program. The application really does emphasize getting to know you as an individual, so it's a little different than some of the other ones. It has some pretty straightforward questions about, why do you want to go to Stanford? Why do you want to be part of the Knight-Hennessy cohort? There is a video component that you have to submit after the deadline. So you apply in October, and then by December you have to submit a little video. One of the things our applicants have struggled with over the years is a section where they ask you to list 8 improbable facts about yourself. So again, they are really interested in knowing who you are and what you think about. That's not just an academic record or transcript, not just your test scores or things like that, but what is it that makes you tick, that makes you interesting, that would make you a good part of this cohort. The application deadline is usually in mid-October. None of these that we've talked about or that we will talk about today have any kind of campus, like our campus process. You're free to apply to all of them, any of them on your own. We are more than happy to help. That's why we're here. One of the things that Knight-Hennessy does, though, is they do allow us to see on the back end of the application who from USC is applying. So I usually reach out and just offer our services to anyone who's interested. We have the option, you have the option of asking us to do like a nomination letter, but usually that's just kind of a formula. What they want or need from that is pretty minimal, and so we rarely do it. We rarely have students ask for it. If there's something special, contextual about your USC experience that you really want us to address, we can talk about that. I'm not against nominating students, it's just not a requirement. And a lot of our applicants for Knight-Hennessy are actually alumni. So, but would love to have more applicants for Knight-Hennessy. I think it's only going to grow as a program. Stanford obviously is both a beautiful and really powerful place to go for graduate school, and so I certainly would encourage you, look at Stanford. But to be honest, if Stanford's not already on your list, well, look at it and see if it should be. But certainly, if Stanford is one of the top places that you want to go, you have nothing to lose by applying for Knight-Hennessy to support that endeavor. That's what I've got for Knight-Hennessy. Who has questions? Because a couple of you were most interested in that. Yep. That's a good question. So Ben asks if you should prioritize the application to the school over the fellowship, vice versa, or best done together. I mean, you can't get Knight-Hennessy if you're not into the program. So if you're going to prioritize something, I would prioritize getting into the school. But there's such different kinds of applications that I think you kind of can do them together. Knight-Hennessy is going to see your Stanford application, right? So whatever program you're applying for, they will also see that. And I think the same is true, or maybe true at least, for the program. Certainly because they talk to each other, they need to have a shared file on you. So it's not, they're not exclusive. So you can kind of think of it as your entire application to Stanford and Knight-Hennessy. So I think it's probably more equal on balance, with the caveat that the most important thing is to get into Stanford and Knight-Hennessy. So, but they do happen fairly simultaneously. They just are asking different questions. Yeah. And one thing we can help you strategize about too is like, you know, since you have those two different applications, right? Like you might want to be strategic about who you ask to write letters of recommendation for each one. They may not be the same people, right? You might want different people. And you may want to talk about, you obviously do have to talk a little bit about your studies and your plan for Stanford in your Knight-Hennessy application, but they're a little more interested in your approach to the bigger picture questions, being part of the scholar community, where you want to, what you want to explore sort of beyond your graduate degree. So yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a definitive answer for, Ben, but I hope that helped a little bit. Other questions? They always say spring. So I think a lot of these will open in April. That's my gut. Yeah. And, you know, so after this meeting, you know, we'll send you a follow-up. We'll make sure that if you're interested in this, we'll ask you to fill out our intent to apply form. Tell us you're interested in Knight-Hennessy. So when we get an email that says it's open, we'll share that and say, oh, hey, Knight-Hennessy application is just open today. So we'll make sure you don't miss that. All of these are really good, you know, summer opportunities in terms of working on applications over the summer. Yeah. Okay. And I apologize again for the slide. We just focus on the next building. So I'll move on unless there's other questions, and we can always circle back. So the Erasmus Mundus Joint Master's Degree. So a couple of you were interested in this one. These are some of my favorites because they're just so quirky. So this one worked because I didn't try and make Jordan's picture the background. So Jordan Hammond is one of our most recent winners of Erasmus Mundus. We've had like at least a handful, 3, 4, 5 people do them. So she's actually over in Spain right now doing the Euro Public Health program, and she sent us this picture from Nepal. She's the only American in her program. So the website, I say just Google it because it is like the longest, ugliest link in the universe. They're also, I will warn you, redoing their website, and it is, they took what was already not the most useful website and made it even more unuseful. So we're happy to help you kind of navigate that. But if you Google Erasmus Mundus, the Joint Master's Degree, it's like EMJMD, like you're going to get the page from the EU. So what this is there is a select list of 2-year master's degrees for which the European Union provides funding for international students. Right now, I think there's 139 different program options. So they're really specific graduate degrees. It's not just, oh, I want to do a degree at this school in this place. Let me apply for the scholarship. No, it's, oh, this program looks really interesting. What they've done, the reason that they're called joint master's degrees, is that these are programs that have been put together by a consortium of schools. So for each grad degree, you're essentially spending a semester at a different university throughout Europe, right? So you're going to be at 3 or 4 different universities and countries over the course of this graduate degree. Makes it really cool. So you've got one university that's kind of the organizing university, and that's usually the one that will grant you the diploma. but you spend a semester at these other schools as well. So there's a lot of mobility involved. It's a great way to see lots of different cities in Europe. And so it's really just a question of looking at that list of 139 and seeing if there's something that's of interest to you. I would say, and so the application process is pretty straightforward. It's not centralized. Each have their own application process, but it all kind of runs through Erasmus Mundus. You can apply to up to 3 programs at the same time, right? Because they are competitive. I do think that this program is less well known in the U.S., and so there are not as many Americans applying for them. But in terms of the competitiveness of them, I think it just really depends on the program. Okay? And then the deadlines are a little bit different. There's usually an early deadline that is what you're going to want to hit, because that's the deadline for applying in order to receive the scholarship funding as well. If you want to be self-funded, then you can hit a later deadline, because these are programs that are open to anybody, whether you need a scholarship or not. But if you want to be considered for the funding, hit the early deadline, and those are usually in like January, February. They vary by time. Riley, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. So for those deadlines, for example, I'm a junior right now. If I were to apply my senior year next year, would I just have to hit these deadlines by like second semester, so that January, February, or is this like now for the next 2 years?
It would be next year. So it would be your senior year. You would be applying if you wanted to go straight into it after graduation. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good question. Good clarity. I was also just forgot what else I was going to say. Oh, I also would encourage you. I mean, so for example, we just heard from a student who was accepted to the program and now is waiting to hear if he's going to get the scholarship. We won't hear from that until April. I mean, I will say, if you are interested in a master's degree, no one wants to be self-funded, but the cost of these, even without the scholarship, is probably a lot less than you would be spending in the U.S. anyway. So if you fall in love with a program, but don't get the scholarship, I think it can still be worth looking into as an option. We've not had anyone really do that, but I just think some really interesting options. I was trying to pull up their website, and again, because they're redoing it, it is just the ugliest thing in the world. But they've got, you can, well, I should just pull up what the old website looks like, because that was really the better one in terms of being able to sort through and see. They haven't even figured out for themselves yet how to, they don't link to their updated page themselves. They link you to the old page, and at the bottom it says, this page is going to be, archived. Please go to this link. And I'm like, you should just link it yourself, because that's what people do. And now my computer doesn't want to connect to it. So I was going to try and see if I could get you all some options, but it seems to be frozen. I hope I didn't freeze all of you. If anyone can hear me, would you just unmic yourself?
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
We lost I also just sent the link in the chat. Jen, are you there?
I suspect we lost Jen.
Okay, I think I might be back. Are you all still here?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I tried to open the Erasmus Mundus page and it froze my computer. So don't be like me. I'm going to take that as a sign that it doesn't want me to look at that list right now, but we can try. So, because I would like to show you all the different options. The reason that we try to encourage students to look at it is that there's some really interesting and specific, but also interdisciplinary options within Erasmus Mundus. So that list of 139 is worth exploring and just seeing what's out there. But I will wait to try that. I think what I'm going to do is finish this little PowerPoint and then try and go and share my screen and show you some of these websites in terms of navigating them. And Emma, thank you for sharing that link, because hopefully that is the link that I was trying to do when my computer froze. So best next steps in general: check out the websites of whichever program you're interested in. Make an appointment to talk with one of us, because that's what we're here for, and we want to help you plan and make sure that this is a good fit, and then talk you through how to support you in that process. Really identifying potential recommenders as soon as possible. That would be this semester. I mean, most of these are not going to be things you're applying for until the fall. But if you can talk with faculty before you leave for the summer, I think that that's ideal. So that would be as soon as possible. Planning out your drafts and deadlines, make good use of the time that you might have this summer. We do have our intent to apply form, which we use that to ask you to indicate which ones you think you're applying for, so that we can do better follow-up with you and make sure that you are looped into the process. It is not set in stone. You can change your mind, but it's just helpful for us to know what you're thinking you might apply for. And then, of course, we're always here to look at drafts of your application materials and give you some feedback based on what we know, and then make sure that you hit submit. So I think that's it. And then this is our just a little quick thank you, and that's me. So let me see if I can stop sharing this. And then I can see everyone's faces that are hidden. Yeah, okay. Let me see if I can share my, I want to do an application right there. There we go. Thank you for showing me your face. Hi. All right, I think I'm going to try. Okay, so here is my desktop. So this is the Schwarzman website. So they have a good overview of the curriculum, of student life. They give you information about scholars, how to apply. They've got some pretty fancy videos. I think the program experience is good to look at, right? So it's the courses that you're taking, the leadership experience, and really the network that you're building. So again, Schwarzman's emphasis is on leadership and networking in China. Okay. The Yenching Academy, oops, ask away. Right. I can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Now I can hear you.
I'm sorry, I need to get off track for a second. I have to run to class in a minute. I just wanted to ask one question first, if that's okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you. So my question was just for recommenders. How many should we need if we're intent on applying for like 2 or 3 programs, and do they all have to be faculty?
That's a really good question. It is going to vary by competition. I would say 2 is usually the minimum. 3 to 4 could be possible in terms of what they're asking for. 3 is probably pretty standard. In general, I mean, all of these are for graduate programs, right? So your academic ability and background is a pretty key component to what they're looking for. So you definitely want them to be from faculty, but often there's, like maybe if there's 3 letters, often you want 2 of them to be from faculty who have taught you in class in your field, and the third could be from someone who might be able to talk about your leadership experience, or your service commitments, or whatever else you're trying to really bring out of the application. So it kind of depends. That is one thing that we are certainly happy to talk with you about one-on-one, to sort of see who you have on deck, like who do you think you could ask, and who might make the most sense to do that. But so in general, I would say probably about 3, and 2 of them should be faculty for sure, but the third one you have some options.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you so much.
No worries. Good luck. Enjoy class. So let me pop this one. This is back to Yenching. So this is what their goals are. Again, you have information about the academy itself. You can look at who their current scholars are. You can read about the admissions process and their curriculum. So it's a pretty straightforward page. And this is, yeah, so they currently have their, well, they don't. December 4th is long gone. It is now February. I'm sorry this picture's not showing up. My computer is not having a good day. The Soros, here we go. This is their website. And so it's been 20 years. They founded it in 2000. and so you can watch their little videos about that and what they've done in those past 20 years. They're trying to be more inclusive in their eligibility requirements in terms of who they're counting as new Americans. So just really for Soros, one of the key things is to make sure that you're eligible. So that's helpful. For those of you who are not eligible, please do share this with any friends you may have who are eligible, because it is one that we really struggle to identify students who might be good candidates for, because we don't tend to ask about we do sometimes ask about citizenship questions because that's an eligibility criteria. But if you are a citizen but the child of immigrants, we're not going to know that. We're not going to ask that on any form. So please share that information. But yeah, so they're on Instagram. You can read. There was one page I was on. They had a lot of videos of recent scholars and their stories. So a lot of good information. They do offer a lot of information sessions, so many of these do, and so any fellowship you're interested in, if they offer an information session, go to it, because they are going to tell you what they are looking for, right? As the foundation that is supporting this, the best thing you can do is hear it straight from them. So take advantage of that. The Knight-Hennessy Scholars Program, here's their description and their website. They have some nice videos as well. They're talking about the King Global Leadership Program there. But you can, and actually this nice, what we look for, right? Independence of thought, purposeful leadership, civic mindset. So there's that. Keep that in mind, because again, like the questions that they ask on the application really are about getting to know you as a person. And so you want to kind of weave in examples of how you are a person that fits these categories. Okay. And then finally, yeah, okay, this is the ugliest page in the world. So this is now where the EMJMD catalog lives under scholarships. You will note that there are 139 right here. And so they'll show you 20 on a page. The good news is, well, it's good news, bad news. Keyword, I've not had much success with. Project period, I'm not really sure why those are even the options. Country, I mean, if there's a particular country you want to go to, that's great. But I think for these, it's more effective to search by your field of study. And subject, this is what gets me, because those are not the subjects that I want them to have. I want them to have things like life sciences. But we'll just scroll through, right? So adult education for social change, Master of Science in Marine Biological Resources. I'm going to click on that. This card, yeah, so the bummer is a lot of these don't have links. So some of them have links to the website that would go right under here, and that's where you're going to find out a lot more information. Right now, a lot of these just have these general giant paragraph summaries. But you'll see that this one, you're in Ghent, you're at the Sorbonne, you're in the Algarve, you're in Oviedo. You've got all these different options about where you can go, right? So these are all the institutions that's partnering with. Ghent is housing it, right? But you're not going to go to all of these, but you'll go to like another 3 of these. So you can check those out. Fire safety engineering, innovative medicine. There's one in Japan, so they do go outside of the EU sometimes, where like you'll spend 2 or 3 semesters in the EU and then a 4th semester elsewhere in the world. Just depends on the program. Science and world development. We've had some people apply this Master's in Security, Intelligence, and Strategic Studies. So that's an option. Soils and global change, math. We've had someone do one in physics. She actually ended up staying in France and finishing her PhD in Grenoble. So I think these are the kind of programs where once they get you over to Europe, sometimes people don't want to come back, which is unfortunate because it's about exchange, right? So come back and tell us about how cool these programs are. But anyway, I know that some of them, I'm trying to find one. That has an actual link to a page. Okay, there we go. So Infectious Diseases One Health has a link. So this is what you're actually looking for, is you want to find the programs that have these full pages, because this is going to have a lot more information about the program, how to apply, your different options. They have updated stuff. So, it's open right now and the deadline is February 2nd. And again, this would be, you apply right now to go next year, right? because of COVID, you might want to investigate a little bit more right now, because some of them I think you can apply now and it's like an almost automatic deferral to the following year, because you're not sure they're going to be back up and running. But it just really depends. And the infectious disease one would almost be ironic to be one of those. Looks like you're in Edinburgh. Like that is Edinburgh. Where do you go? Let's find out. In Tours, and Barcelona, and Hanover, Germany. Interesting. Maybe that's not really good. Okay. Anyway, I can get stuck in Scotland all the time. Let me stop sharing this. So we did create a Excel file of all 139 programs so that they're all in one space, one list. So I'm happy to share that as part of the follow-up to this meeting as well, just because it's easier than going through 20 pages, or I guess 7 pages for 140 competitions. But Erasmus Mundus is a great program. We've had students from the university get them and go and do them. And different awards, but typically the people who have won them have been the only Americans in their whole cohort. So it's that makes it really exciting, but they are varyingly competitive. So that's really all I have to share with y'all, but I'm happy to give you any more specific or general information about looking at graduate programs. Certainly all of these are of the competitive nature that these should not be the only things you're applying to. You should have a plan for going to grad school, probably in the US. And these are just options that would be nice to pursue on the off chance that you got them. So, questions? Comments? Again, I apologize for the screen freezing. Nothing? Yep. Well, you're welcome, Celia. All right, well, if there's nothing else, what's going to happen after this is we will send out a follow-up email. It'll have some next steps. We'll link to all of these competitions because, again, I apologize you couldn't read the slides. And we'll also have a link to that intent to apply form. So if you are interested in applying to any of them in the coming academic year, just check the box off and let us know so that we can make sure you're part of the process that we can support. So thanks for attending, and I hope that the rain has stopped. It may have. I might see some sunshine. So go enjoy some sunshine. I'm going to stop recording if I can remember how.